Being 6:04, I'd like to call the August 5th Public Works meeting to order. We already said the pledge. Looking to adopt the agenda. Any changes, Robert?
No changes.
So moved to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Barron, second by Mr. Dorsey to adopt agenda. Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public input. Do we have any public input? Seeing none. I look for the approval of the minutes.
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Ritchie, second by Mr. Herder to approve the July 1st, 2024 meeting minutes. Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Wastewater treatment plan updates. Ben?
Good evening. So it's budget time again. I'm pretty much done with it. I didn't have much to put on it this year or for next year. Lift station 8 will be on there, and I want to squirrel away some money for the electrical just in case it fails at our main office building. The ferric chloride over the last almost 40 years has kind of eaten away at it. I showed Robert how the step down transformer from 480 to 120 is making a lot of noise. So I just want to make sure that we have funding available if it gives up the ghost during that time. I did have an electrician come through and look at it. He's like, it might last, it might not. Most of the stuff is basically off the shelf where we could go to like Werner Electric, get it, and hopefully within a couple hours have everything back up and running. But yeah, that ferric in that room really destroyed a lot of stuff over the years. Other things that I'm gonna have to increase, as I had stated, the elderly facility is nickel and diming us. This last year has been crazy. I haven't gone through money this quick ever. But a lot of stuff is past its age of when it should have been replaced. And the sludge hauling and chemical costs are gonna go up. Especially the chemicals, they're increasing that another 11% for 2025. And we need that to keep our phosphorus limit. So we'll go over that more next month. Well, maybe I'll be here.
I can go through it.
So when Manawa got their massive amounts of rain, we also got hit pretty hard. We had almost 5.5 million gallons coming through that day. We're designed for 2.1. So we were very close to having to call up the DNR and saying we're throwing stuff right into the river. But luckily it started tapering off and we were able to get things through. It wasn't pretty, but we got through it. We did have a couple things fail due to the amount of water flushing, like sand and gravel from failing laterals and sewer mains through the system. Rags got clogged up in a lot of pumps. So we've got all that stuff cleared out. Last week, Thursday, I got called in for more of the same. It didn't quite get as bad as this, but it went over 4,000 gallons a minute for about 2 hours. So we're also waiting for the butterfly valve. They initially gave us a 2-week for ordering it and getting it installed. Now it's 4 to 5 weeks. So I found that out today. I'm going to try to rip that valve apart tomorrow and see if I can get that unstuck so we can at least get some air into that tank. Let's see. Most of that rainwater was coming from the initial rainwater was coming from ditches, storm sewers, and roof drains that are still connected to the sanitary. Last year when we redid North Water Street, they did eliminate quite a few roof drains, but I have a feeling with the older businesses on Pearl Street, we're probably gonna find some more. but most of it was coming from sump pumps. And I know everybody's sick of me talking about all the I and I coming from sump pumps, but earlier this spring, WI Act 106 was passed, so now there's a possibility of getting clean water funding, which was usually just designated for public use. We can now use it for private lateral replacement or repairs. So in the next couple of months, we'll be talking with Donahue and seeing what we need to do to get this fixed. I don't know if that's gonna rely on medium income, because a lot of times clean water funding goes more towards lower income municipalities, or if it's gonna be individual housing which will get that funding. I'm really not sure. We'll find out in the long run. One thing I am worried about with all this excessive rain that we've been getting the last month or so, is the DNR gonna force us to take care of our I and I before we can even start looking at the treatment facility? Because in 83, the Fifth Ward, basically all the sewer mains and the lines going up to the property line were replaced with PVC. And they had to do that before they could even start the wastewater plant back in 87. So I don't know if that's still gonna happen for this upgrade or what. I guess we'll find out more when we dig more into it with Donahue, because they're basically, they do this every day, so they hopefully will have the answers. Let's see. So 2 weeks ago, Chad, you said Family Fest was coming. So that Friday, we're gonna stop taking in holding tank, septic waste, anything that's hauled in from outside the city to try to minimize the amount of orders that are going to Wheels on Water Street. And during the Saturday vendor fest. So I was thinking about this. With the new upgrade, which we're planning on doing, to get rid of nitrogen and phosphorus, you have to have a fermentation tank so the bacteria can break all those things down. I don't know if anybody's ever gone down 41 between Prospect and 441, and it's like, that stinks a little bit. That's basically gonna be the odor from the fermentation tanks. Every wastewater plant has those that have activated sludge plants, which is what we're looking at doing. So with that in consideration, with the amount of money that we could potentially get from the federal government and clean water funding, do we start looking at another place to put the plant? Because people are gonna complain and there's nothing we can do about that order. That's just how treatment plants work. With people wanting to put the sculpture trail and all that other stuff, is that gonna be a bad situation where everybody's gonna be like, oh, boy, it's really reeks down here. I'm never coming back here again. So with that being said, do we look at possibly relocating the treatment facility? And that's something that's gonna come up in the future when we're starting to look at design and stuff. Does anybody have any questions regarding that portion of this?
Would it have to be close to by the river?
Not necessarily. We could, like, Tyson, they put in a line because they were going into Mud Lake and they had like a very, very tight limit on their flows that they could put in there. They put in a new force main to go to the river, and they're, I think it was what, 2 miles roughly that they put in of force main. So technically you don't have to, it's just that you're gonna have a pipeline going from the treatment facility back to the Wolf River Ave. We could go to the Embarrass, but chlorides will probably be a problem. Like right now, we don't have problems with chlorides because the river is so big. The smaller the receiving water, the stricter your limits are. So it's just something we'd have to look into. Or do we just do our best with what we can down there, and then if it stinks, it stinks. So, because I think you brought that up a couple months ago. where possibly relocating the treatment facility would. And maybe that might be a better answer for the next 30, 40 years. So no other questions? I know it's a lot to throw at people. I'm just letting people know that, hey, this is gonna be a problem in the future, probably. So on the 19th of June, we started taking in GLK, which is Great Lakes Kraut in Bear Creek. Their fields, they put irrigation down because it's basically agricultural. So they can just irrigate onto fields. Unfortunately, the water table is so high this year that they're bringing it to us. And in the last month and a half, they've brought in a little over $18,000, which we really don't have much to do. It's just, it comes in, it's fairly low weight, low volume waste. So we're easily taking care of it. So with our excessive size of plant, because we built to manage Saputo cheese and Borden's, we've got the capacity for that as far as getting BOD down. And so far this year, this was written on July 30th. We're over 200,000 in revenue from what we brought outside the city to the treatment facility. Let's see. So now with the self-digester, this debacle keeps getting worse and worse. So Sanchez Coating started removing the concrete and the epoxy on July 9th. It's coming off very, very hard. They're also seeing a lot of cracks. Donahue's saying that those cracks probably formed way back in 1953 or 54 when the structure was poured. They don't see any movement, but a lot of people are like, oh, this is probably what's causing everything. Even though every report says a mean blush is what's doing it. And that's just improperly putting the second coat over the first coat. So Donahue and the paint supplier and KTA, or not KTA, and the city basically had a meeting and we looked at the tank, and then Donahue came up with a plan to go forward. And that kind of fell apart after that a little bit. I don't know if it was just interpreted wrong, but basically Corcoran put a halt to Sanchez removing stuff. They took some of their equipment, and today they took away the handrails on top to secure the opening. We're hoping that in the next couple days, we're gonna figure out, are they coming back? Are they not? Where are we gonna go from here? So that's really kind of putting a damper on them getting this tank done before fall. So I don't know, is there anything you want to add to that? I mean, it's.
No, it's just not a good situation. As you can see, leaving a product like this. And I do think it has to do with some misinterpretation between emails versus having face-to-face meetings. People being maybe a little out of line on what they're thinking, but we had several meetings at the end of last week with Donahue, just trying to, with Donahue and Sherwin-Williams, to try to get everybody back on the same page on how we're going to finish this thing out and get us back up and running. And it's going to take several more meetings to get everybody on the same page. We have a line out to them saying, you know, this is the expectations. It's just, we haven't heard anything back, but it's only been today that was sent out. So I can see this, hopefully not a bunch of back and forth, but everybody getting back on the same page and we get this thing knocked out. Some of the clarifications made in the coating removal and what we can go over or what they can go over and reapply kind of changed to help them out time-wise as far as the recoating. hopefully with that in play, it helps the ball start rolling again and we get moving on this project.
Did we have any contract or anything with them when they had finished this? Or,
No, basically, I think the only contract is the original contract from 2019 saying we have to be made whole. So it's kind of what we're up against right now.
Any other questions for Ben?
I have one question, Ben. Have you found out whether we'll be eligible for the grant for Oshkosh Street for the INI?
No, that's something I want to talk to Donahue when we start going into that. So either Donahue or McMahon, because McMahon's doing the engineering for Oshkosh Street. So. They'll probably come about that because we started engineering prior to that bill passing, so hopefully,
Be some money there.
yeah.
Any questions for Ben? If none, thanks for the news, Ben.
Well, sorry about wish it was better.
Just like, thank your crew for, I mean, that's a lot of water to come in, doing the best you can do.
Thanks, hopefully tonight won't be the same.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Next item, recommend a council ordinance for new stop sign locations. Skarsky?
Okay, this ordinance is pretty straightforward. Like I said, there was some, I had a little bit of additional money that I didn't assign to signage. And because I've been getting quite a few calls about these three specific areas. The one on Walmer at Southland, mostly because now Southland's finished and more traffic is using Southland, and when Walmer traffic is used to not having that traffic from the east coming in, it's creating some issues. And I believe the other two that are on Lawrence Street at the two east-west streets, most of those complaints, I think, the complaints started to rise because of people trying to, get around the lights and that when we're having all the issues with the bypass. So, or some of the detour there. So, I know they're uncontrolled and it's nice to knock these out. Last December, we did an ordinance for this year for our 10 signs, our 5 controlled intersections. And we've jumped on those and taken care of them, but I'd like to include these for this year as well.
Anybody got any questions on that? If none, I'm looking for a motion.
So
second,
Motion made by Mr. Herder, second by Mr. Dorsey, to approve and recommend to council ordinance for new stop sign locations. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving along to updates on enterprise lease vehicles.
I know a question was brought up in finance, about, certain questions to do with the financing and, what money we brought in, with the used vehicles. So I put this spreadsheet together. The amounts shown there, I figure I'd just go over these one by one, then trying to explain them. The 2011 Ford Fusion, back when they gave us the current value, they were estimating around $4,700. That's before we started having issues with it. What happened to that vehicle in the meantime? It had a CV joint and bearing go out in the front and some other suspension issues. So they actually came and, we didn't want to stick the $2,500 or $2,600 into it, seeing as how it was being replaced. So they came and picked that up on a flatbed and took it for auction, and that went for $1,242. The next one down, the 2013 Ford, that was the SUV Interceptor. That is the one that I was using back then. The average price they would get for that year mileage in fair condition, they estimated at 10. When they auctioned it off, with all the, let's see, I had constant rear brake problems. I had a wobble in the rear end at low speed. Like if you went down Warner Allen, it was almost like you were on horseback, and I didn't want to spend the money to try to figure that out. It also had a lot of engine hours because that was a hand down patrol car that went to a drug vehicle that went to us. With that being said, that one was sold for $4,000. The 2013 Ford sedan police interceptor, that's the one that the building inspector used. They estimated that at $7,300. However, there was a slight steering issue with that, and he was having some issues with his transmission that we knew that it was going down the road that we chose not to diagnose and just limp it through until they came and picked it up. So that one brought in $3,000. The 2017, I'm guessing it'll be sold very soon. We had some issues with the title on that one because it was still titled to the police department. So with the contract through Enterprise being the city versus the police department, we had to fill out some additional paperwork and get that clarified so they could put that for sale. So when those numbers come in, I'll definitely update this. So as of now, the initial lease cost was $640.85 per vehicle. Right now it stands at $759.93 until that the last vehicle is sold. And then that will be adjusted. It will come down, but it'll only come down as much as we get for that 2017. And I'm not guessing it's gonna be 14 because I think out of the two SUVs, that one was in a little rougher shape than mine. The one I was using. Does anybody have any questions on that? I can make one last comment. It is nice to know that that you all agreed to go through this with me to try to see if in the long run it'll save the city money. It is also nice to know that I can travel to different locations and not have to worry about the hood popping on me like it did on S when I went to De Pere one day. So thank you. And hopefully this does work in the end.
Any other questions for Mr. Garski? All right, thanks, Robert. Moving on to discussion and approval, the questionnaire for citywide garbage collection.
So I didn't have a whole lot of time to work on this. I did bounce the questions off of a few people in a few communities. But in the end, I think it just comes down to these three questions to initially kick it off to find out if we wanna go further with this. And I think the number one question is, would you want the city of New London to go out for bids? And contract out residential trash collection? The next one would be the same wordage with, if you do not have the option to opt out and we're billed for the service. And the other one stating that if there is an opt-out option, to try to inform people that, if there's an opt-out option, it's gonna affect the cost of a residential trash contract. So do you think there should be that option? I think with those three questions, the one being the most important, we can kind of get a path and where we go with this, because I guarantee you, if there's a lot that say, yes, I want it, but they want an opt-out option, that's gonna make the price. If you have 15% of the population that wants that opt-out option, 85% are gonna carry the load of that contract, which is gonna increase things quite a bit. So if we could have people answer these three things, we'll have a better idea on what direction to go. If anybody can think of any other questions, I mean, there's other questions they can ask you. What size container do you use now, and would you want a larger one so you can kind of judge volume? But if there's a lot of people that wanna go out to bid and have the city get a contract, but they wanna opt out at the same time, I don't think there's gonna be a lot of savings for a bulk of the people.
When we're looking at this, there probably are people in the city that are not using garbage disposal now. What are we basing these questions on? Are we going to base it on the entire population household of New London, or the amount of people that are currently using garbage disposal?
Well, hopefully, we can't base it off of anything right now because we don't have that input. It'd be nice to get input from anybody, and especially if they see this questionnaire in their water bill that they're saying, well, I don't want anything to do with it, so they respond and we get that information back. Because without anybody's input, we don't know where we sit. We hear a lot that a lot of people want it, but if there's 10% of the people that don't, we're still in the same predicament.
Should we put a question in there, are you currently using garbage disposal from some?
That's not bad, yes.
I don't think
You
the
know,
city should be responsible for hiring another contractor to pick up residential garbage. It's not the city's responsibility to get rid of somebody's waste. It's theirs. I mean, they got a chance to contract another disposal company besides GFL to see if they can get it cheaper.
I have to agree with Bernie.
I also agree with Bernie. Who,
My daughter
who's gonna,
lives down by Fox Crossing, and they have that on their taxes, and they love that. They don't have to worry about nothing, because they know it's gonna get picked up. She said she likes that.
well, our garbage gets picked up once a week too.
Huh?
I mean, our garbage gets picked up once a week too. I mean, who's gonna administrate all this in City Hall and take
It is,
care of
it's
all this? I
gonna-
mean,
Cost the city money in the long run.
bottom line, it's gonna cost us money, and they can go wherever they want. They don't have to go through GFL.
I think they pay 100 and some a year on their taxes. Hortonville does too. Theirs is like 100 and something. So it'd be a lot cheaper if, I don't know.
I think what got us to this point, I'm not on the committee, but it's been talked about for about 8 months now, is a bunch of residents came forward and said. Timed around the time where GFL had a pretty, but is a pretty large increase, rate increase, like a lot of things in the, inflation. And a lot of people approached the mayor and a lot of people approached how much staff got approached. Constituents were starting to ask about this, so then we started asking about what other towns do. Robert's been kind of chasing this bird in the brush for a while. And the last I was keeping attention of everything was kicking around this, ask the people. Because there's two very greatly contrasting situations here. And that is careful what you wish for, resident that wants us to contract it out. Because if everything doesn't just fall into place, you'll be paying even more in the end. Cause that's what I gather is what, so say people want the opt out. Even if everybody opted in on it. According to what Robert was told from GFL and some other places here a few months ago, the price change would save.
Nothing's guaranteed when it comes to a contract, and until you have that contract in place, you don't know what that price is gonna be. And if you start adding elements like opting out, that'll increase it more. And like you're stating, what does it do for administration down here and handling that end of it too?
So if Arters comes in, say, okay, we can save people, at least for next year's contract, we can save people $12 on that contract. But people gotta pay for a $60 new container because GFL is not gonna let Arters use their containers. So I mean, there's a lot of factors, and the reason that we set out to ask this question to people was because we were getting contacted by citizens saying, what city can you do to get GFL to either lower their prices or to, a lot of people think that we are in the garbage business now. They already think that because their garbage can says New London. And I think if somebody, our recycle bins say New London, and if you need a new recycle bin, you call the city. And the city brings them out for Outagamie County or whoever. So I mean, at this point to say, and I agree with Bernie and Dennis, at this point to say, I don't think the city belongs in the garbage business anyway. That would have been nice 6-7 months ago when we were asking Robert to look into all this stuff. So now, but I mean, I'm just saying, that's where we're at here. That's why these 3 questions are up here, is we kind of directed Robert to look into this stuff.
I don't think it hurts to send it out in the mail and get it back. At least you have a idea of what's going on. We don't have to do that, but I think that way it might answer some of the people's questions that have been calling and complaining about it. So I don't think it hurts to do that survey. I mean, I think it's probably just, even if it's just for informational.
I don't disagree with that. I just didn't want us to like go back to where we were 8 months ago. And just trying to remind everybody how this question got up there.
Well, the big point of doing it, and I'm not saying I'm for that we should do this, because like you guys said, there's more administration that we have to factor in a price to do that. But the purpose of it is you're competitively bidding the service. So those contractors have to sharpen their pencils as much as they can to competitively bid. That's the point of trying to bring down the contract compared to right now. Nobody's competitively bidding anything. They can do whatever price they want. So, like I said, I'm not in favor of running with it, but that's the whole point of the competitive bid process, to try to bring the price down.
To say that we're going to have to pay for garbage cans, I don't know that that's a true statement. we'd have to find out whether they're gonna supply the garbage cans first. I mean, actually, we're paying more for recycling right now than normal because everything has to be hauled to Outagamie County's landfill. We've already been told that by GFL.
GFL hauls theirs in too.
I thought they had their own disposal.
That's
Nope.
just a transfer station.
Yes, so everything in the city, years ago, the city jumped on to the Outagamie County Recycling Program. And with that recycling program, they pay for it with the user fees from the solid waste portion of it. So the city at the time, it's not a GFL thing. It's a city decision at the time that the city was gonna jump onto the Outagamie County Recycling Program. So everything's gotta go to Outagamie County. You pay a little bit more because you're subsidizing and paying for the recycling with the solid waste fees, tipping fees that they have over there. So that's not a GFL thing. And depending on what contractor you would have come in here in the future, still, all the solid waste by ordinance has to go to Outagamie County because you're paying for the recycling portion through that program.
I guess my concern is if they give us a theoretical number of $100 a year, just throwing a number out there. And also you get a bunch of people opt out of that process. Now, let's say if you told residents, okay, it's gonna be $127 a year, just throwing a number out there. And all of a sudden, you're 15% opt out. Now you gotta send them back and say, oh, because these guys opted out, now it might be 130 something or whatever. So I don't think it's ever gonna be a solid number.
It's not.
I think it's gonna be a lot of problems.
So I guess we get back down to, do we wanna put this questionnaire out? Chad, what do you say, how much does that run the city, when they do a questionnaire like this through the utility bill?
So this would be similar to what we just did with the Economic Development Committee. We did a survey. So to do the survey online was nothing. I can just do that through Google. But then the publication of that card was under 300, 400 bucks, somewhere in there. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then you would send it out. People could scan the QR code. Or if someone doesn't want to do it online, we could have paper copies here. We could put that in this little pamphlet that we can put in as an insert to the utility billing to let people know where they can go to fill out a paper copy if they want to, but pretty nominal. If you guys want that information, it's probably not a bad thing. So at least you have it. So if this question comes up in another year, you have that information as alderpersons to kind of base on moving forward. So it's a very nominal cost to put something like this out. But the big thing is to make sure you guys determine what questions you want to make that decision moving forward. So if you like this, we can run with something like this. Otherwise, if there's, like Mike just brought up a good point for, do you have garbage, are you paying for garbage service already? I think that's another good question, but to put out a 4 or 5 question survey online, pretty easy.
I think we owe that to the amount of people that have questioned, at least to investigate, as long as you're this far into it, to just put it out there and see what we get back. We're not gonna get a large number, I wouldn't think, back. But at least we have something like Chad said to go back on and, hey, we tried and to get some input and this is what we got. Any other discussion on this? I guess at this point, I'm looking for a motion.
To make a motion, we go ahead and send out the survey. I would like to see the question put on there. Do you currently have garbage disposal? It will give us information. If at that point, we can always drop it. And we can tell the people, we made an effort. We listened to you.
And I'll question in your motion, do you want us also to do the utility insert?
I want an insert because I think there are a lot of people that don't go online on Facebook and some of this stuff.
Got a motion? I guess
As long as we get the final say, say yes or no after we get the questionnaire back. I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Barrington to approve the questionnaire for the citywide garbage collection with the fourth question as do you currently have garbage pickup? And with having a utility insert. And a second by Mr. Herder. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hey,
Opposed?
Aye.
Who knows? So motion passed.
Who are the twos? Just so we have it.
Dorsey and Richie.
Thank you.
So motion carried. Director's report, Mr. Garski.
Okay, I have no service anniversaries this month, to go over the construction projects. Downtown, you've probably seen the signs on Pearl Street and I had them put an additional one out on East Water informing residents that the intersection will be shut down on Wednesday. However, in order for that to happen, they have to have phase one done. And they're not close in that aspect. Not totally complete. There are issues like the area by the theater that we cannot do any construction on right now because of the problem with the building. The light poles, they do have to figure out some type of temporary lighting situation. But the light poles were pushed back to the beginning of September now. And the luminaires are pushed off until the end of September. So even with that being said, they're looking into some type of temporary lighting. So when they get to the point where we have to take the other lights that are down there offline, that they have some illumination down there during construction. They have terrace work left to finish. That's both colored stamped, and some approaches. They have the parking lot approach left to pour. They have a recent saw cut that they did this morning to repair right in that bump out area, the road panels that they had some issues with the dowel bars. They saw cut that has to be removed and replaced and have cure time. So with all that being said, I don't believe it might not even happen this week. They need to paint yet, clean everything up. I mean, there's a lot to do, and I don't think they grasp everything that we're gonna require in order to move to stage 2. Some other things, we talked about the lighting, you'll see topsoil placed in areas that will be sodded. We will hold off on placing that sod until the beginning part of September. That is not a requirement in order to move to phase 2. But one, it'll help with settling, and two, I think they'll run out of water days as far as if we have a long dry hot spell. I don't know about dry, but we definitely had the heat. I don't want them to put in the effort and then to have to, we've already redone enough stuff. I'd rather hold off till we know we can have this side grow. There's several spots that still need asphalt work completed. They did a lot of touch up behind the curb stuff, the stuff by Dairy Queen. This intersection's pretty much a wrap, other than a few odds and ends. There are areas of concern in the pavement. There's been approved sealer that will need to be applied, and there is some joint sealing that needs to be fixed up and addressed as well. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the downtown project?
Are they gonna take some of these cones down here on the corner to make it easier for traffic? I mean, to move them back, when you come down off the bridge, you're almost looking like you're running into the cars that are going to the south. You come down
Well,
off the bridge.
they did have them staged out a little bit, and that's when they were switching out the two poles. I moved them in some. I can talk to them and have that moved in a little bit more.
I've had a couple of people comment that it looks almost like you're gonna run into the cars that are going to the south. But I haven't had a problem, but I've had that comment.
So where's your meeting that you had with the state going with all them surface imperfections that were circled?
That is that sealer that I just mentioned. There's two different types of like an epoxy sealant that the state approved to fill in these imperfections. One is similar to one that they use on a bridge deck. I'm not saying like it'll look like the bridge decks that are sealed here. That's a different situation. But between the contractor's recommendation, the state engineers looking it over and seeing what kind of sealant they want to apply. Those engineers said that it would work, so that's what they're gonna use, and they have to address every single one of them.
So I'm assuming that's not gonna be a cost to us.
No,
That's gonna be a deduction on them, or
that is something they have to provide to correct the issue without a cost to us.
so if they're gonna apply that, how do they suggest to get all that crack filler that's all over the place on that street off?
I know, there's more than that, John.
I,
Trust me.
this is just a few things I'm bringing up, but it's kind of ridiculous, honestly.
It's more than that. It's so frustrating. It's to the point where I have trouble going down there.
Well, I'm definitely not pointing a finger at you or nobody, but
Right.
it's just something that's been brought up in
And that's that sealer, the day they put it down, I was out there saying, this isn't gonna work, that's not right, and you pointed out, but they can't direct them on the way to apply it, otherwise they'll put it back on the state saying, you told us to do it this way. It's address it when it happens, they provide a solution, and the state approves it, and you carry through that. And that's that way with every single thing that is pointed out. It's nothing like last year.
So with all this being said, we have an October deadline date. There's no way that's even gonna come close.
There are penalties, and if they go past October 15th, the state takes care of all that.
Okay.
I have nothing to do with that portion of what they determine if they don't meet that deadline.
I mean, the rate they're going at phase 1 or half or 2, whatever we're on now. There's no way that
They're gonna get it done.
they ain't gonna get done.
Well, for 2 weeks, they had nice weather and you never saw anybody there.
And we have brought that up more than once. Our laundry list at every meeting is long, and we address it and we get the same kind of response, and it's frustrating.
Robert, you're doing a fine job. The state will take care of it.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's about all we can, at this point, that's all you can do.
Will not be done by October 15th,
Sleeping
No.
at night, we sleep at
unless
night,
they
Robert?
start working 24 hours a day.
Well, they told one contractor they're gonna work Saturday without even telling them, but he told them at the meeting, and then that was the 2 days before. And he's like, well, I can't, he's got other contracts and he's got this or that, it's really tough, let's put it that way, about the leadership. So we'll hopefully have a better plan of attack, as far as the second stage. We're already requiring more documentation leading into it. Like, what are you gonna do if this happens? What are you gonna do if this happens? Pedestrian accommodations. They said they were addressing that. Weren't even close.
Yeah, I tried
To what
crossing the
needed to
street,
be
I
done.
almost died, so. A lot of pedestrian accommodations down there.
And that they have to submit a full-fledged plan now before they even can take one panel out in stage two. Cause, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Any other questions? Quick one, Oshkosh Street, plan overview is done. We're gonna do a site walkthrough on that. And I'm also saving the city some money, instead of hiring out a contractor to do soil borings and all that other stuff. We have a really good staff in the street department. We're gonna, the roads, like, in really bad shape anyway, so 6, 8 more patches in that road is not gonna hurt it for the rest of this year. We'll do the sampling of all the depths of asphalt, anything beneath it, and then what we have for subgrade in those locations documented. That'll help that process along. Asphalt paving and patch program, with what we have going down here, and not wanting any asphalt over the streets until that street is complete. I don't know where we stand there. The patch program, we are meeting with the contractors, having a pre-con August 13th, and then we'll go over the patching areas and get those rolling shortly, so. Other than that, that's about all I have, unless anybody has any more questions on it, anything.
Any other questions for Mr. Garsky? Like I said, like Dave said, keep doing a good work, Robert. It's not on you, but when we get questions, sometimes they gotta be asked.
Oh, yeah, and absolutely, anytime.
Hired an immediate contract. Plain and simple.
And even if you have a question before this or midweek or whatever, shoot me an email, call me. You have my phone number. I'll get you the answers you need, or try to answer your questions, I should say. I won't give you the answers you want, more than likely, because I can't.
All right, move on. Thanks, Robert. Future agenda items. That questionnaire will take a while to get out, man.
Yep. But that'll probably stay there. Like Ben said, we'll be going over his budget next month. I don't think mine will quite be ready until the October one. I'll see what I can do. That's all I have as of right now.
If anybody else comes up with any other questions, let one of us know.
I'd like to say something. That stop sign went up on Beacon Avenue on Hill Street. I was coming home today and there was 3 cars ahead of me, and the other one right around the corner. I misunderstood you. I thought that one was gonna have lights on it.
Oh, no, they just flag it and put the appropriate verbiage underneath it. Other than that, they can't really, they could illuminate it, the stop portion, if they wanted to. The problem is that wouldn't draw attention to the fact that the sign underneath is what they need to read and pay attention to. Because everybody's used to that stop sign. And everybody's used to the different verbiage that was underneath it, where they changed that out. And there will be a learning curve. I still see it at Pearl and Beacon.
These
2-year
signs
learning curve.
Underneath, I sometimes think confused people. I think you'd almost do better with just a stop sign there and nothing said.
But
I mean, traffic doesn't
you,
stop.
yeah,
Can't just put a stop sign there. Don't think the other one stops.
the only way to take all the verbiage away is put a 4-way stop and put the actual 4-way underneath it. Otherwise, when you run into a 3-way stop, they have regulations that go along with a three-way stop, and that's the only language they can actually place underneath it now. You can't even put three-way stop. You have to put the indicated traffic lane that does not stop, and that's all you can put.
All right, let us know if anything else pops up. Next Board of Public Works meeting is September 3rd, a meeting following a conclusion of the 2:15 Park and Rec. 5:50, my bad, 5:15 Park and Rec Committee meeting.
I would love to have it at 2:15.
Or when I get here.
Let's do it at noon.
Yeah, then we get hit Miller.
So because of the holiday, we're gonna do another double one.
Yes, and if that works for both committees,
That okay, Bob?
having Park and Rec go first, us following, or it makes,
Park and Rec's probably gonna be a lot shorter this time. This was a lot of stuff on this.
Is the chairman gonna be here?
Not sure.
I was gonna go there, but I
Sooner or
decided
later.
not to. Is that because we're not waiting on somebody? It's
Sooner or
gonna go
later.
quicker.
Nothing more, I'm looking for adjournment.
I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Ritchie, seconded by Mr. Herder. For adjournment, any other questions, discussions? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed?